How you doing? I'm Kevin O'Hara for alcoholmastery.com. Another question I got today over on YouTube was, does my partner still drink, and does that affect my quit and how I feel about drinking? Does it affect me, and what ways does it affect me? My partner still does drink, yeah, and it doesn't affect me at all at this stage. It's like, I'm completely used to myself not drinking. I just don't think about it anymore. Doesn't make any difference if I see somebody else drinking in a pub or somebody is sat next to me drinking at home. I can go to a party and people can be getting drunk around me and it makes no difference. It's that kind of thing now. If my life, my thinking has moved onwards from that. It's like anything else in life. You get used to it after a while. In the beginning it was a bit more difficult, right? I'm not saying that it wasn't. All of a sudden I'm taking something which was a real massive part of my life. I mean, if you think about it, I don't really remember much about my childhood. There's the odd thing that I remember every so often, and I get this flashback. You get a smell and you remember something that you haven't remembered in years, or you see something or somebody says something to you and the same thing happens. But in general, I don't remember much about my life in England before I was 12. I remember much more in Ireland after I got there in 78. So what I'm saying is that I started drinking when I got to Ireland, roughly around 12 years of age. That's when I had my first drink. And I stopped drinking 4.5 years ago. So I was drinking for most of my memorable life, right? I was smoking before I can remember. I would start smoking when I was 7 or 8. Not full time, obviously, because you can't afford cigarettes at that time. But smoking whenever I could get my hands on a cigarette. But it wasn't until I was in Ireland that I actually started inhaling the cigarettes. So it was, in the words of Bill Clinton, I didn't inhale, so I wasn't really smoking back then. But drinking alcohol was just something that I did. It was a massive part of my life. And to go from drinking one day, being a drinker one day, to not being a drinker the next day and having to deal with all that is difficult. It's a bitter pill to swallow, regardless of how motivated and how obstinate and how persistent you are, what reasons you've got behind you. It's still difficult to unravel that part of your life, to take it apart bit by bit and to replace it and all that kind of stuff. And the biggest difficulties are in the first 30 days, because you're overcoming a lot of emotions, a lot of physical feelings, a lot of mental feelings, and a lot of thoughts, and the gremlin is there in full swing. He's telling you can't do this, and go for another week, or just cut down, or all this kind of bullshit. So all that kind of stuff is in full swing, and it's difficult when somebody is there in front of you drinking it. It's a lot easier if you can surround yourself with people who don't drink. You can get rid of the alcohol out of your system. You can put yourself, especially in the first couple of weeks, into a situation where there is no alcohol, where you're not thinking about alcohol. You're outside of that whole environment where you would normally drink. I mean, that's why dry out clinics work, because they take people out of their environment, they put them into a place where there is no alcohol, they have no chance of getting alcohol. Everyone's talking about not drinking alcohol and helping you not to drink. But the problem with that kind of a situation is that once you leave the dry out clinic, whether it's after a week, 2 weeks, or a month, you're straight back into the environment that you were. And as my recent trip to Ireland goes to show, it's very easy for your brain, when you haven't been in a place for a long time, once you get back into that place and the place is the same, right? It's very easy for your brain to start ticking down that same route again, to just very quickly to sort of go, oh, I recognize this, right? This is where this old pattern came in, and try to put those patterns back into place. Now, the longer you've been away from alcohol, the more you know that you're going to deal with this thing in an intelligent way, and you've got rid of all the cravings. You don't, alcohol is, you've set up your life in such a way that you don't drink anymore, right? That alcohol doesn't play a big part in your life. The more distance between yourself and alcohol you get, in other words, the easier it is for you to go, yeah, well, that's just bullshit, and it's as I say, that was a bit depressing for me being in Ireland. But anyway, that's a different story. What I'm saying here is, in those first few days, it's difficult. So it was difficult for me to have somebody there that was drinking and refused to stop drinking. I mean, she helped me out as much as she could, and gave me a lot of encouragement, kind words, and said I was doing the right thing, and her saying to me after a couple of weeks that that I was just acting differently, I was looking differently, and from an outwards perspective, it really helped me. So nowadays it's become a bit of a joke, for me and her. I take the piss every so often. I say, oh, there we go, the alcoholic, every so often. It's a running joke with the two of us, about her drinking and stuff like that. And she doesn't drink that much. I'm not going to go into her drinking, but the main point is that she does drink now, and I don't find any temptation with it at all. Like I say, you have temptation everywhere. There's people going to be around you drinking. There's people going to offer you drinks. There's going to be places where you're going to go. We went to a wedding last year, and there was free drink. It was a free drink all night long, right? You never had to pay for a drink all night long, and whatever you wanted, wine, beer, whiskey, whatever, it was there. And that would have been heaven to me before. I'd have left there, in a taxi, not knowing. I mean, and this is what I remember. So like some of the people that were there, and they said they didn't know how they got home. They missed taxis. They had to walk, and this was a long walk for. It was warm, so it made a difference. But at 5 o'clock in the morning, when there was no more taxis, I think they called a couple of taxis, and on 2 different occasions the taxis had turned up and nobody was there because they were inside boozing it up. And then eventually, when they called the taxi for the 3rd time, the taxis didn't turn up, and they said they weren't going to send any more taxis up there, so they had to walk. And I think it was about 5 kilometres. When you're pissed out of your head, 5 kilometres is a long way, At one stage, one of the guys told me that there was he just got into his bed, and there was a knock on the door, and they said that one of the party was lying in the middle of the road outside the hotel, and he was in the way of taxis coming up. So and that kind of thing just makes me laugh, because I got up the next morning fresh as a daisy, and you see most of the other people, and it's sort of like, yes, you're going, hey. It's good. But yeah, it doesn't affect me at all. It doesn't affect me that my partner, she doesn't get drunk. She has a couple of glasses, and she's always done the same thing. But anyway, look, until next time, keep yourself safe, keep the alcohol out of your mouth, onwards and upwards. Take care. Bye now.